I'm going to do another post here to talk about why these do-it-yourself wills can be a real disaster. It's a warning here to anybody that may be thinking about doing a will themselves, one of these online forms. If you're a family member or somebody that may be thinking about that, if you're a beneficiary down here, and especially if you're involved in a probate or an estate. And let me explain what happens here. Just one example, kind of hot off the presses, right? So someone comes in and they are a beneficiary in a will. A family member died, and they knew the family member well, but weren't particularly involved in the financial affairs of the family member. And that's pretty common. There's lots of, respect, privacy, that sort of thing. And so the older people are down here. Family members are up north or wherever else like that. And in this particular case, the person goes and unalives themselves, no fault of their own, but the person becomes unalived. And a will gets filed, and then some other family members in other parts of the country get notices from lawyers. Hey, you're entitled to X. And just so happens that this person knew me pretty well, actually. And they just casually wanted to run this thing by me. It's one of these deals where, they don't go real formal with me initially. They just say, hey, out of the blue, I'm getting this deal, and seems pretty good to me. And just would you mind looking it over? And hey, Merlin. And I said, yeah, no problem. Let me take a look at it. So first they emailed, and then they subsequently dropped off the paper, and I started to look around at it. And again, one of the things about this practice of law, 25 plus years, you start to do things a little bit differently than the young bucks coming out and just casually or quickly doing things. I printed it up and I sat it there in this will, and I will tell you that one of the red flags that I always have, if a will is done by a lawyer, we don't typically dive real far into it, right? Particularly if it's somebody and I always look up to make sure that, there's no red flags or anything. But, typically you can look at the paper, you can look at the deal and know that it's pretty clear, maybe not something to challenge. This one was one of these do-it-yourselfies, and again, red flags are always up, but at least on the surface, initially, okay-ish, right? So I just kind of pushed it off to the side, and then I started thinking more about it, and I went and looked at it, and then boom, light bulbs went off, red flags, huge issues that became apparent right away. Made a couple inquiries, and sure enough, my instincts were right. Things about these do-it-yourselfy wills that provoke what these problems are. When someone goes into a lawyer's office, should be that the lawyer is doing a good job of checking out capacity. Is the person know what they're doing, why they're doing it? Do they know what they have? It's part of our job as a lawyer when you do a will. Where antenna are up to who's driving you here. How did you find me if I don't know you? And why are we doing this, right? So all these questions that we're asking, this time that we spend, and, we're looking deep into people's eyes, and we're picking up on signals that, you develop over 25 years of doing this stuff. But when it's a do-it-yourselfy will, you don't know any of that stuff. But you try and put the family history together, the decedent's history, are they sick? Did they know they were sick? Did they know the people? Why were they doing this? Does this change dramatically what they've done in the past? And so the more and more I start asking those questions, the more the red flags start turning into big red warning signs that are 100% wrong. And I can tell you this, there are wills all across the state right now which should be ripped up, tossed out, thrown away, because of some problems with the forms that exist on some of these major services that are out there. And the problem is, no matter what the questions that are asked in these online forms, they're not taking into consideration the real world application of some case law that has to do with how property and different accounts and things like that are disposed of in the actual explicit text of these wills. Now, I'm hinting at the complications of this in things that people don't consider and that these questions don't even ask about, does a person have capacity? Are they the victim of undue influence? That's in one column. In the second column, these forms don't take into consideration that in the will, if you give everything to one, but you're ignoring the fact that the payable on death and joint account stuff is where all the other assets are, that's the other way these things can blow up. This is just focused on the explicit text of the form. that it was just dead wrong according to Florida statute, Florida law. So this small estate that was going to result in someone getting a decent portion and everything was fine and dandy, all of a sudden, boom, blew up like a nuclear bomb, and the entire circumstances blew up in the face of the person who was helping the will to get created. That got turned around, and now things get developed, distributed in a much more even-handed way. But the lesson from this story to anyone out there in the estate world is be exceedingly careful and suspicious of any kind of online will, anybody that's done an online will. If you see handwriting in a will other than the signature, that's your key to the question. You see handwritten terms in a will, even if you think it makes sense, even if you think that's what it's supposed to say, that's your turn to really question, get it in the hands of an attorney, look at it. And these handwritten terms and these things that are in there that even on its face, I guarantee you there are practitioners all across the state, all across this country that have let these wills go forward without carefully considering the case law out there that demands that it be thrown out. And again, the other interesting thing about this is, I tell you, there's a real small universe of case law out there. We're not dealing with a whole bunch of cases that go one direction or other. This is a really narrow band of case law that tells us that online wills written out that don't have the terms in them correctly should just be thrown out and thrown away. FloridaRules.net is where I've got all these rules on probate and trust procedures and every statute that deals with it explicitly. I encourage you to follow it and drop in questions if you have anything to do with a will.